Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. A little bit about me. I'm a Mayo Clinic scientist, and I have a DNA consulting company. It's called AJ Consulting Company. And I also have a couple of YouTube channels that are interesting. One's called Anthony J Cast, where I release a lot of scientific information. And the other one's called Anthony J Family Cast, where I basically have adventures with my kids and just do a lot of outdoor adventures. But today I talked to Justin from Louisiana, farmer from Louisiana, real interesting guy. He had a fan going in the background, so I had to hire somebody to process the audio and take the fan sound out. But the audio engineer did an awesome job with that, I think, so it should be good. And we actually ended up talking a lot about the carnivore diet again in this episode, so I released it right next to the previous episode where we also discussed the carnivore diet. These are some real interesting genes. Hope you enjoy. You can certainly check out ajconsultingcompany.com and sign up for your own DNA consult. You can do it confidentially, or you can actually join the podcast. Look forward to talking to you. Enjoy the episode.
Hello.
Hello, Justin.
Hey, Doc.
How's it going?
Good.
Yeah, so you got the recording device in the mail?
We good? We're up and running?
It's working? Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I had forgotten. I bought a whole bunch of them, and I had forgotten to initialize a couple of them. So some people had to initialize theirs, but I probably remembered for you.
Yeah. No, I think I got a good one. I mean, it was just like your instructions. Start it up.
Good. Yeah, I'm just as new to this as you are, so I'm glad to hear it. It was actually, hopefully,
Okay.
Following my instructions worked.
Okay. Hey, Doc, I got a question.
Oh yeah.
So are we getting on Skype or it's going to be on the phone?
No, I think I'm going to do them on phone with that recording device instead.
Okay. So do I need to plug my earbud in, I guess,
Into the
my
phone?
phone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I had I have a slight complication there.
Oh,
the
sure.
earbud I had to choose for the computer was old style. But wait,
Oh.
Tessie's grabbing the little spade jack.
Well, okay, I see. Yeah. Because if you want, I could do Skype. It just sometimes has a lag. But yeah, we can just wait a minute, and if you have the adapter,
she's
it's no
plugging
big
it.
deal.
Okay, we good. We
Awesome.
on via the phone. Okay, great.
Yeah, just let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Oh, you got the earbud in already?
I'm in. She
hey,
did it.
Awesome. Well, thanks. And obviously, I've spoken to your wife before, I believe. And I remember you're in Louisiana. I can't remember where, but I probably told you guys I was just down there in Mississippi, right? Or did we talk before that?
Yeah, I think before.
Oh, it was before that
we had
because I was saying
spoken.
I was going to go down there.
That's right.
Yeah, so I went down there, had a great time. Of course, I stay in Mississippi, but I went over to Covington, Louisiana. You're probably pretty close to there, right?
Not too far away. We're probably about 3 hours or so.
So
They're
it's nice.
almost
Yeah.
due east from us. So
Yeah.
we're south central,
Right. Yeah, I went to this place called Top Velocity. It's like a professional baseball training program for pitchers.
Oh, wow.
It's really exceptional. Yeah, it's a great place. Really good program for up and coming pitchers, for expert experienced pitchers, big YouTube following, that sort of thing.
Well, were you see where you have a kid or something in it or
No, just the guy who runs the program is a friend of mine, and of course I've done his DNA and a lot of his professional athletes.
Okay.
So we did a podcast down there.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, and let's see. So in terms of your stuff here, you're taking omega-3s, grass-fed beef liver as a pill, or do you eat it?
Peel.
Yep. How about the sulforaphane? Do you just eat broccoli, or do you get sulforaphane
Both.
supplement? Okay, yep, both.
Yeah.
Turmeric, grapeseed, I like it. Methylation, complete. That's like a B complex, I assume. And then
Right. Yes, sir.
super greens, psyllium husk fiber, vitamin C, apple cider vinegar. So a lot of good sounding stuff there. So yeah, let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
And
Sounds good.
usually I would start with the brain, but your brain genes are so darn good. I mean, we can just briefly jump through them, but I mean, pretty phenomenal, right?
Really cool.
Oh
I
yeah.
told my wife that. She didn't believe me.
Well, and if you want, I can pull up her file too, but you could probably pull hers up later and just compare yours and hers and see where the kids are going to stand, right? But of course, you've done most of your kids, if not all of them at this point, if I remember.
Right. I'm the last one
Oh,
on the
yeah,
list.
you're the holdout, huh?
Yep, no
Good.
doubt.
Well, so, I mean, you don't really have much of an Alzheimer's risk. It probably doesn't run in your family, except for this.
Not that I know of, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is this one gene, CETP. It's pretty common. It's like an Alzheimer's risk if your triglycerides are really high. But I can't imagine yours would be super high, with your healthy living. And I mean, you never know. It's worth checking, and your reasonable weight. You're 200 pounds. You've got good triglycerides. But again, I could put the numbers there in the paragraph. Just make sure you're below 125.
Okay. So I could speak a little bit on that.
Yeah.
I do an annual physical
with
my medical doctor. And 2 years ago, I was like around 160 or something. And that was the only flag like in the cholesterol arena, and he told me, he said, Justin, I'd like you to bring that down. And he told me, he said, stay away from sweets, whatnot. And pretty much I only supplemented omega-3 pretty regularly.
That'll do it. Yep.
And the last annual I had, they were I think right at 125, and he was like, perfect. Well, man, they dropped a good bit. And he asked what I was doing. I said, man, really just taking omega-3, Yep. But anyway,
that's great.
So is 125 like a threshold I want to stay under, or
yeah, I would aim for that. I mean, that's pretty optimized, right? Most doctors are happy if you're just below 150.
Okay.
But I'm pickier, right? I want you to be optimized. I don't want you to just be okay, quote unquote okay. And usually just if you bump up your cardio, that also helps. But you're doing quite a bit of exercise. You said you do a couple times a week CrossFit, maybe 3 times a week.
Right.
Were you doing the CrossFit before that blood test? Or is that new?
Yes. Yeah. I had been in for probably about a year. So that probably had something to do with it too.
Well, I mean, CrossFit will help. But yeah, they literally, if your triglycerides are really high, they oftentimes will prescribe you omega-3 fatty acids like fish oils.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely an effective way to do it. Keep doing that,
Okay, cool.
And keep doing the exercise, of course. But yeah, I mean, I've talked to people that are 500 on their triglycerides,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if you're just like 160, 150, hovering around there, it's not outrageous to be at that level.
Mm-hmm.
It is outrageous to be at 500, but those are the...
What about 300? Is that
that's pretty high.
Pretty bad one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes there's certain genes that bring up the triglycerides, but like, they would be in the heart disease category on this report. But yeah, you definitely want to do a lot more cardio in that case, get your blood flowing through your liver, help your liver pull those out.
Well,
there's other ways too, but yeah, usually.
So
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what's low? How low can we expect to get it at optimal health, I guess?
A lot of my clients, they're like 50, 50 to 80.
Wow.
Yeah. But it depends on, your body weight and your past history and all that kind of. I'm perfectly happy if you're below 125.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, Alzheimer's, like if you had a whole bunch of people in your family that had Alzheimer's or something, this is your one risk gene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you got a pretty good end of the draw. I'm not too worried.
Okay.
You don't have to get too crazy. And then the caffeine, your body burns caffeine really quickly. So that's also pretty much a good gene, right?
Right. I love coffee. So
yep,
we like that. Yeah.
So we can just switch right into diet because, like I say, your brain genes are so good. And of course, you've probably heard me say this a few times now because you've been through this, but virtually everybody has type 2 diabetes risk genes, because humans just aren't built to eat a lot of carbs.
Right.
So you see a couple on here, but it's not unusual to have a few. And the hex gene, HHEX, that's particularly common. I mean, that's having a plus on that hex gene is a 3-fold increased risk for type 2 diabetes. But that's people eating a standard American diet, right?
Right.
Which obviously you're not doing. And this one in particular it's actually specific to nitric oxide production in your pancreas, which indicates exercise is really important here. And you're doing that, because exercise increases nitric oxide production.
Okay.
You could do some L-citrulline or something like that, like as a pre-workout, but I mean, do you know your fasted blood sugar? They probably have it on your blood test, right?
What
It's
was
like
that when we went to the
fasted
doctor?
glucose.
And I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't recall.
I bet it's better now because we've been doing keto.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd probably check just to see. But and that one too, you want to be below 90,
Okay.
And if it is high, then maybe get more into the L-citrulline and some of the intermittent fasting protocols, because those genes come up. There's a whole bunch of intermittent fasting genes, which are the next few genes. And again, those are also common. I think most people benefit from intermittent fasting. And that metformin gene that comes up in the middle there of all these intermittent fasting genes, that one it's a plus minus, but you're basically a higher responder to metformin. Have we talked about metformin at all in the past consults?
One time I think it came up, but you could go over it again because I don't remember.
I mean, I wouldn't really probably bring it up with children, but obviously with adults, it's generally a quote unquote lifespan extension drug, because you can't prove that in humans because that would be like 100-year study. But in animals, whether you're studying rats or rabbits or mice or whatever species, if you give them metformin, it generally massively extends their lifespan and health span. So they're not just decrepit for a lot of years, they're actually healthier for longer as well. So a lot of people are taking metformin for that purpose. But again, some people have pretty poor genes. You've got good genes. The problem is it's a prescription. So you got to go to the doctor. You got to convince them that even though your blood sugar is good, you want to take it specifically for lifespan extension. So that's a kind of, pretty optional. Keto is another good way to do the same thing. And it sounds like you're doing that already. So,
Right.
You might try it if you want. If you feel like keto is a real burden, I have a prescription for it in full disclosure. So,
yeah. So the metformin, I mean, basically what you're doing is just lowering your blood sugar, and that's the advantage on the body.
Yep, basically, and you're bumping up your metabolism. So there's a little bit of benefit. It's a little bit complicated, but yeah, I mean, that's the long and short of it.
So, but isn't there some issues with metformin and joint pain or crippling type side effects?
Usually it's diarrhea if you take too much, or if you got poor genetic response to it.
I must have, because it almost killed me.
Oh wow!
I barely picked myself off the couch.
Yeah, Tessie was prescribed it for a suspected diabetes, I guess, issue, and man, she was bedridden.
I passed all my glucose tests fine, like my fasting, all of that.
Right.
But I have like some thyroid issues and pituitary issues, and they just kept pushing that. And so I took it, and it was bad.
Wow.
I felt horrific.
Right. Yeah, oftentimes if your gut bacteria is all messed up, that's one of the,
it would have been too at that time. Yeah, she was pretty screwed up at that time.
Yeah, I don't recommend it if you're kind of in a transition with bad gut bacteria. And I just pulled up your genetic report, and you didn't have any good response genes as well. So you're kind of, right, kind of stacked up. But I'll bet you, if you still have some around, but you probably threw it out, right? But
I would think,
if you got a prescription, Justin, you could take like 500 milligrams. I mean, the other problem is a lot of times they start you on way too much. You might have had too much of a dose. You want to ease into it a little bit and see how your body responds. And, you'd probably be fine, but totally optional.
Okay.
Again.
Okay. So you'd say about 500 milligrams daily?
Yeah, just 500 before you go to bed. Mm-hmm.
Before bed.
Some people get a little nauseous from it as well, which is probably what you felt. Again, that's why you usually would take it before bed, because then you don't feel that. Yeah, I mean, I can take quite a lot. I can take over 1 gram per day, you know, and have no issues. But again, I take it right before bed.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right.
Yeah. Do you do any intermittent fasting?
So I have started, and I actually love it. I can honestly say my whole life I probably didn't miss many meals, you know. And I started intermittent fasting probably about 5-6 weeks ago, and it's been great, man. So what I'm doing is, and look, I'm not you know, I guess too much of a pro at it, but I definitely after supper at night am not eating until at least lunch the next day.
Good.
And
yeah.
Now I do in the morning have my coffee, and I'd actually talked to you about that once, and you know, I use a little cream in it, just a little bit, but I try to stay under 50 calories, or you know, but anyway, and that's what I've been doing, and I've lost quite a bit of weight. I've about 15 pounds. Yeah,
doesn't surprise me. No, that's great. Yeah, keep up the good work. You know, I mean, usually what I tell people in terms of the coffee, you're still intermittent fasting. It's just not like quote unquote the gold standard. You know, so people debate about how extreme you have to be. And in my opinion, there's like different levels. It's like if you're eating carbs, you're definitely not intermittent fasting, right?
Right.
If you wake up in the morning and you're pounding some toast or something, anything with carbs. But then the next level is if you're eating protein, you know, that's also not really intermittent fasting because you're shutting off a lot of these pathways, these autophagy pathways. But it's better than if you're eating carbs. And then the next level up would be fats. You know what I mean? And then the next level up is coffee, and then the next level up is pure water. So there's kind of levels, and you're on a higher level. You're on a good level. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Great.
And you could try it, you know, you could try with and without cream for a week and just see how your body responds, but you probably won't notice too much difference.
Yeah, I do. Sometimes I do just add a little cinnamon just to kind of break the bitterness, you know, but it you know, here and there I'll throw a little creamer in.
Yeah, and you could try.
I'm feeling weak.
You could try MCT oil too. You know, a lot of people do that. It's basically it's called medium chain triglycerides. I don't know if you've ever heard of MCT, but it's a great supplement. I mean, basically, what's cool about MCT, it's called medium chain, but the fatty acids are so small that your body can't store them as fat. You know, normally your fat is like 18 carbons long or 16 carbons long. That's how long the fats are, the fatty acids. But MCT is like 8 to 12 carbons. You know what I mean? It's pretty small fats.
Right.
And so you either burn them as energy or you just get rid of them with diarrhea. Those are the two options.
Wow.
So what's like the most you can, like I found some keto chews. It's MCT, but it's the 8 one. I can't remember.
Yep.
And it's a 500 milligram chew. So what can you take that with every meal, or would that be too much by the end of the day?
Yeah, no, I mean C8. It's called caprylic acid, I think. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to. Totally up to you, and it depends. Like if you're eating a lot of carbs and stuff, I probably wouldn't. But if you're doing keto, I would.
Yeah.
You can definitely take it with every meal. I mean, you'll know if it's too much because you'll get diarrhea.
Gotcha.
That's always and you can adapt.
It'll do.
Yeah, you can kind of adapt to it as well. Like you can take a little bit and take a little bit more and a little bit more, and you'll find a point where your body can't deal with it. But you'll get better at adapting to it.
So I mean, you know, say you're eating a pretty standard keto diet. What are the benefits of adding these extra oils and stuff? Is it to just feel satiated further, or more energy, or?
Well, it's probably better than cream. That's all. It's just an alternative.
Okay.
And it's just more energy, right?
Yeah.
So if you need more fats, and I mean, when I do keto, I struggle to get enough fats because it's hard. It's hard to find foods that are really fatty without carbs and all that. So I use a lot of MCT. So it's just
what's the max carbs you would contain on a daily basis on a keto diet if you're running? Because I find I'm crashing really, really bad.
Yeah. If you're running, gosh. I mean, I would just try and go with protein, you know, but it depends what your goals are, you know. Like if you're doing carbs, then you're not technically doing keto at that point, which is fine, right? If you're crashing, do what you got to do. I would get some like amylopectin or something if I was actually like a lot of these guys that do marathons and they race, they do keto. Like, have you heard of Zach Bitter?
No.
Zach Bitter, he's a friend of mine, but he's the guy that set the world record in the 100-mile race.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, he ran 6 minutes and 48 seconds for 100 miles.
Wow.
Straight.
That's
Yeah.
That's sick. That's not even human.
Right. He's just insanely, impressive with that stuff. And I mean, not only that, he ran faster really because he had to stop and pee once in a while, So
wow.
What he does, he stays in keto all the time. But then when he does a super long race like that, then he kicks in the carbs. And then his body's like, oh yeah, right? Because, his body's just always hungry for those carbs and he never gives it to them. So then, of course, when he's on mile 50 or whatever, when he kicks those in,
wow.
He feels amazing.
It's turbo. Yeah.
But usually when you're first doing...
I just started eating a banana, but I didn't know if that was against the rules or what.
Yeah, it technically is, but, the rules aren't, there's no really rules, right? Because it's all about your goals and how you feel and how your hormones are doing, and there's a lot of variables. I wouldn't worry too much about it if you feel good and you're achieving your goals, you know what I mean?
Right.
But that being said, sometimes you have to suffer a little bit with keto to kind of get over that hump of where your body adapts fully, and that's a long process. I mean, some people, it takes a full year to really adapt to it. Some people it's just a couple weeks. It depends how many times you've done it in the past. You get better at it. Your body gets better at adapting to burning fat.
Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah. So, that's, I would consider all of those things, right? It's not a simple equation.
Right.
Heart disease, should we jump down there?
Obesity and adiponectin.
Yeah, sure. I mean, adiponectin, it's another one of these intermittent fasting genes because your body makes less of it. It's pretty common to have these genes.
Okay.
And you make less adiponectin, which is a hormone that helps you burn fat. So you don't want to make less of that, right? With those pluses.
Right.
And the best way to increase adiponectin that I know of is intermittent fasting. It's pretty much that simple. So they're all intermittent fasting genes.
Okay, all intermittent fasting. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, and then heart disease is actually pretty darn good. I mean, you have a couple genes here, but it's not terrible. I mean, plus minus, right? So perhaps it runs in your family a little bit. If somebody's got the plus, like say your grandmother's got the plus or whatever on some of these genes.
Right.
But you really did. You got the good end of the stick here. I would focus on the triglycerides again because of that LPL gene.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably wouldn't worry too much beyond that. I mean, I would say most of your genes that we should probably focus on would be more in the vitamin hormone detox section.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you want to go through more detail on these, I think you're in pretty good shape. Does heart disease run in your family?
It does. So my grandfather was 46 and just dropped dead with a heart attack. And he was from the pictures I've seen of him, a very physical guy. He was a farmer and, just pretty in shape and stuff. And, but he just unexpectedly dropped dead at 46. My dad has had, some calcification issues in a valve and had to have a valve replacement. And, he's 70 now.
Okay.
And then his brother had a heart attack, but survived it.
Yep.
So it definitely runs in my family. Yeah,
right.
It's there.
Have you ever done a CT scan, like a calcium CT scan?
I haven't, no.
You should, just to see,
Okay.
And if it comes back high, just send me an email and let me know. I'd be surprised, right? Because your genes are pretty good. You've dodged some bullets there, I think.
Okay.
But if it comes back high, let me know and we can dig in further on that.
Okay.
We could possibly even do a follow-up consult or something, and I could do it as podcast for free if you want. But again, wait, if it comes back high, which
Gotcha.
I'd be surprised if it does. But it's worth doing. I think everybody at some point should do a calcium CT scan. Especially as a baseline. I mean, you're just barely turned 40, that's a good time to do it, just to see if you have any calcium in your arteries.
Right.
And that way 10 years from now, if you do it again, then you know where you were, and you know if there's been any progression.
Right.
So that's a good thing to do anyway.
So what happens in that regard? Is just plaques hardening basically, or?
Well, yeah, exactly. So what happens at the root cause of artery plaque, it's inflammation. So you have these inflammatory chemicals that basically are going through your bloodstream, and they damage your artery linings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your arteries are almost like skin cells, it's just on the inside of your body instead of the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get damaged, your body actually heals that damage with cholesterol. So you pack in a bunch of cholesterol there. And then there's also a bunch of calcium that gets built up in there, and cholesterol forms into these crystals, so it hardens up with cholesterol crystals and calcium and other metals. So, it depends at what point you are in the plaque, because there's like progression,
Mm-hmm.
Like apparently at age 12 now we're seeing a lot of fatty streaks in children even, and fatty streaks are like the very early stages of plaques in arteries. So because our diet is so bad in this country, 12-year-old children now are commonly found with fatty streaks, right? Which again, that's like terrible. Step one of getting plaque,
Yeah.
So in other words, they're damaging their, it super sucks. I mean,
at 12.
Oh yeah.
They have a whole life to go.
Right. Yeah, you can't, you can't be eating those processed foods and drinking the sodas at your schools and all the public schools and all this kind of thing and get away with it,
Yeah.
It's just not.
Consequences.
Yeah. And parents, it's crazy to me. Obviously I've got kids, and I go to people's houses and things, and there's so many people that just give their kids all this processed junk food all the time because that's the only, quote unquote, the only thing the kids will eat.
Right.
But trust me, if you don't give them that stuff, they'll eat good stuff. If that's the only choice they have, they'll eat it.
You're right.
Eventually, it might take them a few weeks to kind of adapt, and get away from the addictive processed sugar crap, but they'll do it.
Ours are doing it.
Yeah, right. Same
Ours is doing it.
Yep. Like, that's good. I'm glad to hear, and that's the key. And if you don't get them young, if you don't start teaching them how to eat healthy when they're young, it's almost impossible when they're teenagers, right?
Right.
Definitely.
I mean, they're just going and buy their own stuff. They buy their own Doritos. So yeah, again, totally check the calcium CT scan. I'll do a completely free consult if it comes back, and it'll be like a 15 or 20 minute. It'll be a quick thing because I'll have some good ideas for you, but I'd be surprised.
Okay.
So right. I'm taking a little bit of a bet there with you.
Okay. Cool.
That you're probably good, especially if you're doing keto. You're really good. And then leaky gut, you got a couple genes, and it's interesting, that first one, that CDK gene, that one is in your heart disease section as well as a plus minus. So CDKAL1, and then of course in the heart disease it's called CDKN2A. Do you see those two genes?
Mm-hmm.
CDK is a form of inflammation, and in this case it gives you a higher risk of gut issues and artery issues.
Okay.
If you have too much CDK, and these basically CDK, again, it's like inflammation, right? It's a chemical in your body, and these genes to help to shut it off, right? So my analogy I usually use is hot water. It's like having the hot water turned on too hot, and this gene helps to turn it down. But your gene, right, plus, and in the heart disease category plus minus, you don't turn that hot water down as much as you should. But the good news is that flavonoids in plants, so colorful plants, they shut that hot water off for you. So they kind of assist this gene, even though the gene's not doing it, the colorful plants do it for you. So that's where that grapeseed supplement comes in, or just eating colorful plants. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. No, I guess I've never been a picky eater. I eat a wide range of anything, and we eat fairly healthy, and but should I still consider grapeseed supplement? I mean, how do you know when you've reached?
Well, no, I mean, how does your gut feel? You probably don't have too many gut issues, right?
No, yeah. No, I'm pretty much like a goat.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, you probably feel like you have an iron stomach or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, honestly, yeah, you have a couple of genes in this leaky gut section, but that's way more than, I mean, that's way less than most people. Most people have a lot more.
Okay.
Because there's so many you could have in this section.
Yeah.
That, yeah, everybody's going to have a couple at least. So you're actually in really good shape here, to be honest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. So I wouldn't mess with the supplement because you've got other genes that are good. But yeah, get some colorful plants. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, no harm in taking it either.
Correct.
I mean,
yeah. Except it costs money. But yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely no harm in taking it unless you overdose it or something crazy.
Right.
Which I've done. If you overdose grapeseed, I mean, I've taken really, really high doses because you know, I test a lot of these supplements. I test all these supplements myself. And I was taking too much at one point, and it was thinning my blood. I was actually on a podcast interview with somebody, and I picked a scab, or I just was scratching my leg or something, and it started bleeding. And I couldn't get it to stop, like, through the whole podcast. I had to, like, hold my finger on it. It's like, I realized I'm taking way too much grapeseed because my blood was getting too thin, and which kind of is freaky.
Yeah, good bit.
And then you got to stay off it for a long time, you know. But obviously that's not normal. That's just me being a little careless.
Hey, real quick, going back one time, in heart disease, it has a flavonoids, CDK.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Same thing.
Okay, it doubled up. Never mind. All right.
Yep. Completely related to the CDKL1. Yep.
Okay.
It's just like one of those forms of inflammation. It can damage your gut lining, and the other one can damage your arteries. They're kind of similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you notice that keto comes up in the leaky gut section as a really beneficial thing for your gut health, so that's good. And of course, you're doing some keto, and even if you're not doing full keto, intermittent fasting usually kicks you into ketosis a little bit in the morning, so you're actually getting some ketones, you know?
Right.
Without buying a ketone supplement or something like that, which is good. And then, of course, intermittent fasting comes up. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Is that something like keto should be, I mean, year-round, all the time?
No, not usually. It depends how you feel. I generally just do it for 6 weeks, and then I cycle off it. So I cycle on and cycle off. But it depends on your goals, you know. For me, the problem for me is I lose my sleep. If I do keto for too long, I lose my sleep cycles.
Wow. Okay.
I wonder if that's what's happening to me.
Yeah, so, which is, you know, a bummer because I feel amazing when I do it. My brain works just like at a super high level. But then I start sleeping 3 hours a night.
Yeah.
And even though I feel amazing after 6 weeks, when I start to lose my sleep like that, I realize, you know, this isn't sustainable. I can't do 3 hours a night long term. You know, it's going to catch up to me.
Right. So you do 6 weeks on, six weeks off?
No, I do like every 6
year?
months or so. I do 6 weeks on. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Sometimes once a year if I'm kind of lazy.
Yeah.
It depends how I feel, to be honest, and just how my body weight is, and you know, just
what would be excessive?
Excessive keto?
Right. Like, I mean, how much is too much? I guess. I guess it varies.
Best way to be.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good for you if you can sustain it. I know people that have done it for years and years and years. You know.
Wow.
I know people that run keto podcasts. I know keto bodybuilders, natural and on steroids, you know. Of course, I won't mention the ones that are on steroids, but Robert Sykes is a natural one, you know, he's down in Arkansas, Robert Sykes. He owns a company called Keto Savage. Awesome company. I mean, the reason I know that, number one, I'm friends with him and I go hunting with him and stuff. Mm-hmm. But then also he has a product called the Keto Brick, which I use when I do keto because basically
we bought them.
Oh yeah, it's such a great product. I mean, it's hard to find fat, you know, like enough fat with no carbs.
Right.
And so what I do is I just eat a keto brick for lunch and call it a day, you know, for lunch.
Yeah.
Because that's got the perfect macros and it's easy. So that's an option for people listening too, you know, like basically grab those keto bricks if you're struggling to hit those numbers. But yeah, you know.
Awesome.
he does it for he's literally a natural bodybuilder. He does competitions and he's in ketosis all the time. He's strict. I've hunted with him. I know him pretty well. He's not cheating.
Wow.
And he doesn't take steroids or anything. I've done his DNA on the air on his podcast, so it's not confidential. So I would know if he was cheating.
Right.
There's another friend of ours. His name is Danny Vega. He's also in keto for years and years, and I mean, you should see this guy on Instagram. He's just like a gorilla. He's a beast of a guy with a six-pack. No weird, he's not injecting himself with anything. And when we were hunting, right, we were hunting for wild hogs down around Texas, and we would wake up in the morning and check our blood sugar, like everybody does on hunting trips.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And mine's like around 80, 83 maybe, right? Which is fine, which is good. I'm happy with that. I'm not trying to, have a dick measuring contest, but this guy, but Danny Vega, he was like 55 every morning, waking up. And Robert Sykes is similar. I mean, these guys are putting on muscle with their blood sugar around 50, which is amazing.
Golly. Yeah, that's crazy.
So anyways,
interesting.
So it can be done. It can be done sustainably for a long, long time.
Okay.
And then intermittent fasting comes up again in the leaky gut section. So a lot of benefits there from that intermittent fasting.
Okay. So it's definitely for me.
You got it. Yep.
Yeah.
So should we switch to the next section? Or did you have any questions on that section at all?
No, I think we're clear now. So we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, you have pretty good genes there too. Overall you've got really good genes. Vitamin hormone detox section. Yeah. You guys are having a little competition, right?
Oh yeah, she's looking at me right here, making faces.
I do have a question on this section though.
Oh yeah.
That I want to ask you.
Oh good, yeah. Do you want to jump right into the question or wait until it comes up?
I do.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So I looked over all of our DNA
reports
and compared them.
Yeah.
And
good.
My kids all have like pluses in the vitamin D category, B12, vitamin E, heavy metals, pesticides, estrogen detox.
Right.
But they're not appearing on either one of our reports.
Right. Yeah. So did they do 23andMe or did they do the same self-hacked, first of all?
We all did self-decode.
Decode, yep. So what happens if you've got a if you've got a plus minus and Justin has a plus minus, usually those don't come up on this report because there's a lot of plus minuses that aren't substantial. Like they don't really mean anything. Sometimes plus minuses make the report. Like you see that FOXE1 gene?
Yeah.
Like the first one, RS965513. That's a twofold higher risk of various thyroid issues, even as a plus minus.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So even though it's only a quote unquote only a plus minus, that particular gene causes issues in a lot of people. So I flagged that and put it on the report, right?
Okay.
But a lot of times, like with estrogen and things, if it's a plus, it's substantial and it causes issues. But if it's only a plus minus, I don't even include it on the report because it's not substantive enough. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens a lot with parents is you guys both have a plus minus. And again, that won't come up on the report. But then if the kids end up with a plus on the gene, it'll come up on the report.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What you want to look for too to validate a lot of times, if you both have pluses, then it should always be up on the kids,
Okay.
And that's pretty much the case in my experience. Pretty much every time, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And of course, sometimes people do 23andMe, but then their other family members do Ancestry or self-decode or whatever. Some of these different companies, they have different genes. That's the other thing I was considering there. But yeah, let's jump into the thyroid. That's a good question, by the way. I'm glad you asked because it's common. I hear that a lot. And, it's pretty straightforward. It's more about, if I included every possible gene on here,
gotcha.
This report would be like 70 pages, right? Or whatever, or hundreds of pages maybe even. And then you could line those all up and you'd see like, oh yeah, I see where that comes from. But since I'm just trying to find the ones that have substantial risks,
Got you.
they don't show up. So
That makes sense.
yeah, so the thyroid, I mean, again, even though you just have a couple plus minuses there, those ones can have an impact. They might not. I'd suggest just supplementing iodine, and you're probably good. Of course, down in Louisiana, you might be eating a lot of seafood, right?
Sure.
So if you're doing seafood like at least once a week, hopefully twice a week, you don't even need to worry about the iodine.
Okay.
But otherwise, I would supplement iodine and you know, keep tabs on your thyroid hormones, your energy if it starts to decline. Don't be afraid of thyroid replacement therapy. But hopefully the iodine is good enough. With, again, intermittent fasting comes up there. That FOXE1 gene, it's actually, they discovered that gene in Chernobyl, the radiation accident. I may have told you this before.
Right.
Because we've done so many of these DNAs. But, I mean, basically it's involved in healing. You know, if your thyroid gets damaged, people that have damaged thyroids, they usually have the bad version of this FOXE1 gene. And then people that, when their thyroid gets damaged and when they get damaged and they don't heal, they usually have this version of the gene. When they get damaged and they heal up just fine, they have the good version of that FOXE1 gene.
Right.
And that's related to autophagy. You know, that's kind of the mechanism behind that.
Okay.
And autophagy is like cells taking out the trash, cells healing. And the best way to increase autophagy, like I mentioned before, intermittent fasting. Right? So get your iodine. Again, seafood is perfectly great for that. Do intermittent fasting, you should be fine.
So how do you do iodine?
I just get a dropper and put a drop in a glass of water and chug it.
Just one drop?
Yep.
What would that equal?
Well, it depends on the brand you buy or whatever. The one on my website, it's pretty micro dose. It's exactly what you need for daily value sort of thing. Most people take way more than I do, but this is kind of unnecessary. You know, you don't need to overdose iodine.
So it's like once a day, once every other day?
Yeah, you can take it the one I take is 250 micrograms per drop. You can take that every couple days because your body stores it up. It's like 150% daily value, technically. It's from kelp, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, your body stores it, so it's not like you don't literally have to take that one every day. And that's true of a lot of supplements, by the way.
Is there normally like a phase, kind of like a break-in phase when you start supplementing iodine? Do you
sometimes
ever experience anything?
Oh, sure. Some people, they have some heart issue, like weird heartbeat stuff. That would be pretty rare. But yeah, sometimes. Have you tried it now?
I have.
Did you buy like the Lugol's or did you buy like the lower dose?
I'd have to look at it. I got it from the naturopath that I get most of my supplements with.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they take what's called Lugol's solution. It's Lugol's, and that's the stuff you keep on hand in case there's like an atomic bomb. Like it's like super high dose. So if you get radiation exposure, you take that and it helps protect you from damage from the radiation. But it's pretty high dose. I mean, you can take it, but it's kind of excessive, you know?
I don't think I went with a strong one because she had two different options. I think I went with a small one, but I'm going to get my daughter to send me a picture real quick.
Sure. Yeah, and so, like I say, some people notice some irregular heartbeat issues because their body, you know, their body's not used to having iodine on hand. So when you suddenly introduce iodine, you make too much thyroid hormone, a little bit excessively. So you might want to ease into it. Put a drop in a glass of water and then pour out half the glass and then drink it or something like that. Or just check the dosing. But that's super rare, you know?
Right.
It could even just be the form of iodine. You might be sensitive to that particular iodine. You might want to get a different one. That would probably be the easier thing to try first.
Okay.
The next section that comes up is called plant sterols. Do you see that one?
Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of empty categories, a lot of good genes here. And then plant sterols, you have the plus minus on that ABCG5. Less than 5% of people have this gene issue. but it makes you more sensitive to eating plants. So, you don't want to eat loads, but you definitely don't want to be a vegan or a vegetarian. And I doubt,
Good.
doubt that, but, basically this gene is involved in breaking down plant cholesterol, and your body doesn't do that as well. So you don't want to overdo the plants, because otherwise you get too much plant cholesterol in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And that effectively acts like extreme levels of human cholesterol. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And the doctors never check that, by the way. They almost never check. It's called cytosterol. Mayo Clinic has a test. Usually you have to send your blood over to Mayo Clinic, because LabCorp and Quest, I don't think they even test for cytosterols. And I've seen people test for cytosterols, and even with the plus minus, usually when they have a plus minus on this gene, or certainly a plus plus, they'll be high.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because they're eating a lot of plants, So again, don't pound the plants too much, Take it easy on eating plants.
Any plants in particular, or
No,
worse
it's
than
pretty
others?
much literally all plants.
Wow, really? That's
yeah. Well, you can definitely eat them, but just don't eat loads of them,
Yeah.
I would stick a lot more to the animal products.
Okay.
And again, I recommend in that paragraph doing a calcium CT scan. If you don't have any artery plaque, right, that's a good indicator what you're doing is perfectly fine.
Right.
In this regard, because again, it's a plus minus, right? You oftentimes won't have an issue from that. So
Right.
I wouldn't get too worried about it. But if you did come up with artery, here's where I think your father probably, or your grandfather, was it?
Yes.
And
Sir.
his brother, they probably had some plus pluses, right? You got it from somewhere.
Right.
And they were probably told, like everybody else is told, eat a lot of plants, right? Eat your veggies, right?
Right.
And they were probably eating a lot of plants, and they thought they were being healthy. If you bump up your cholesterol, even humans, right? Like sometimes I run into genetic issues. It's called familial hypercholesterolemia, where basically your human LDL, your human cholesterol, is super high. It's like off the charts, right? Not just a little bit high, like the doctors are complaining about it, but absolutely ridiculously high. And that's a problem, because basically when that cholesterol just sits in your blood, it can actually react with oxygen, like because you have oxygen on your red blood cells, and then the cholesterol itself becomes oxidized and becomes a form of inflammation. And then the cholesterol damages arteries, And again, that's only when it's like sky high. You don't have to worry about that. And again, you already told me your cholesterol numbers have been good in the past, and your genes are obviously good in that regard, right? Not so much your triglyceride genes, but more your cholesterol genes. But here's the catch, right? People with that familial hypercholesterolemia, oftentimes they die at age 20 and things like that with heart attacks, So it's really extreme. Those are the people that statins are a lifesaver,
Wow.
And of course they teach the doctors that everybody should be on statins, right? Because they use that case example. Like, oh, look at this case where people get really, really high cholesterol and how statins save their life. Everybody should be on statins. We should put statins in the drinking water, right? Which is absurd, by the way. But but they use that. They kind of conflate the two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with the plant cholesterol, cytosterols, they almost never check your blood for them. And so if you've got a rare gene like this, you can carry really, really high levels of plant cholesterol, and the doctors will check your human cholesterol, your LDL, and they say, oh, you're good to go. You're looking great, right?
Right.
And you keep eating your plants, keep eating those veggies.
Yeah, you're doing good. Yeah.
And what happens, the exact same thing happens, where instead of human cholesterol, now you get super, super high levels of plant cholesterol, reacts with oxygen, damages your arteries, you die of a heart attack at a really young age, right? And again, plus would be a far more riskier issue. Plus minus, I would still kind of go lighter on the plants. I wouldn't say totally eliminate them, although you could. I just wouldn't pound them,
Right.
So that's a long story, but it's worth going into, I think, because this gene is so rare.
Right.
And it's hard to kind of buck the system and get away from the idea that, eating plants for me isn't actually that healthy. Having a few might be, but not too many.
It's a strange notion to even consider, after my whole life being pounded and eat your vegetables.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and then another gene that indicates your ancestors were probably big meat eaters is the next one, right? Because It's called MTRR. It's actually pronounced methyl tetrahydrofolate homocysteine methyltransferase reductase.
Wow. Okay.
Which is why we call it MTRR. But it's critical in the creation of methionine, which is one of the 20 amino acids. So basically it's like a building block for proteins. And your body doesn't make methionine as well as it should, so you want to just get it from chicken or fish, you know.
Okay.
You could supplement if you never eat chicken or fish, but it sounds like you do.
Yeah, no, certainly.
But that's another indicator, right, that, you know, your ancestors probably ate a lot of meat. They were probably more meat heavy. And the B9, you know, that's a tricky one because that one's found in a lot of greens, like spinach and things. It's called methylfolate. I would just buy a methylfolate supplement and not worry too much about it.
That's what he takes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably in that methyl complex that you were taking. What'd you call it? Methylation supplement?
It just has a B12 in it. It's that and B12.
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
Now, look, I've been taking it for a while now, and I cycle on and off, and I don't really notice anything different taking it or not taking it. Should I up the dose or?
No.
Sometimes
No, you're good. I mean, I wouldn't even bother with the B12 because you've got good B12 genes and you're eating meat. I would just get the 5-MTHF because that's really cheap and it's a tiny little
So that's
pill.
the other pill, the green pill.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to determine if you're getting a lot of benefit from it is track your sleep with the Oura ring. And then take methylfolate, don't take it. Most people sleep better with it. That's the big, for men, that's usually one of the most striking things, but you literally have to track your sleep. You won't just feel different. Sometimes you actually have to look at the tracking. But irrespective of all that, you don't have to track your sleep. I would suggest just take the 5-MTHF, not the B12, and it's cheaper and smaller, and just do that all the time. And if you never had issues, that's good. That's a good indicator you never had deficiency. A lot of people do have a lot of issues, and they immediately notice a difference when they take it, but that's because they were deficient, right?
Right. Okay, we grabbed the iodine, and it is Lugol's
It
solution.
is Lugol's, exactly.
2%. Yep.
So that's pretty high dose. Yeah, that's like super high, right? Again, that's what they use with radiation poisoning.
Okay.
And I don't have an issue with that. But if you're taking it and you have an issue, then all of a sudden I have an issue.
Right.
So that's...
I find my hands and feet swell really bad. I know that's weird, but
no.
I take it and I'm like, what the heck? I can't get my wedding rings off. I can't. My feet.
Right.
So I just was curious what if that was something.
Oh, it could be for
normal.
Sure. Yeah, you probably. I mean, I would drop to a lower.
The one on your website.
Yeah, because that's the one that you've got. It's really, really hard to water that. You'd have to like pour it in put one drop in a glass of water, pour out half the glass, refill the glass, pour out half the glass, refill the glass. You know, like 5 or 6 times.
I literally put it in my mouth and drink water.
Yeah, which is like, most people that's okay, but it doesn't sound like your body's liking that super high dose. Yeah, and of course, when I say half the glass, fill it up, half the glass, fill it. You could like put one drop in a full glass of water, dump out 95% of it, and then refill it. You know what I mean? You could do that, but I would just get a different one. It's cheap, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and then vitamin E, of course, comes up. This is a super interesting gene, and it's related to this fake version of vitamin E called tocopherol. And basically, we've probably talked about this before, right?
We have, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's come up in your family quite a bit. But, I mean, it's, there's a whole podcast Ben Greenfield did with a guy named Barry Tan on this topic. Super interesting podcast. But essentially for you, tocopherol is particularly problematic. It'll actually trigger interleukin 6. It'll cause a form of inflammation. And you just don't want more chronic inflammation, right? But it doesn't sound like you're taking a multivitamin, so you shouldn't have an issue here.
Now, it's used as a preservative in a lot of foods,
right?
Here and there. Is those trace amounts? Yeah, even some of our supplements, we see it. Is those trace amounts,
especially the DHA? It depends. Probably, I wouldn't worry about it unless you feel like you have chronic inflammation. Unless you have a lot of symptoms and you just can't. Like if you've got joint issues or brain fog or a lot of extra things like that, I wouldn't worry about it in your case.
like it's in the DHA, right? It's almost always in the DHA, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. Some people, they should, and they do have to figure out a way to get around that. For you, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
But certainly don't supplement it. That's where people really go wrong, especially when I have an eye condition personally. It's called corneal erosion. Like the outer layer of cells on my eye, they've like when I was really stressed out and I was eating unhealthy back when I was doing my PhD, they rip, like the outer layer of the cornea rips, and it hurts like hell, and it's super photosensitive. So light, if even like the red light from an alarm clock hurts my eye when it tears, when I have when it comes up like that, when it flares up. And one of the things they tell you is to take vitamin E. But when people have this gene, right, it's particularly problematic to do that. It's actually worse for you unless you're taking the good vitamin E, which is called tocotrienols.
It comes from annatto.
Annatto, right? That's like a fermented soy product. Yeah. And by the way,
could be a problem too.
Well, no, I was going to say that's a good point to bring up. Is if you're eating soybeans, they're full of phytoestrogens and things. But if you actually ferment them with real microbes, real microorganisms, like not some fake version of fermentation, but you actually do fermentation, the microorganisms will break down all of that estrogen. I mean, not quite all of it, but 99% of it.
Right.
So like a natto and soy sauce that's actually fermented, and like these soy products that are, like I say, actually fermented, they're actually perfectly fine in terms of estrogen.
Oh,
really?
Good. Because I like soy sauce. Yeah.
Right. Like tempeh is another one, and miso is another one. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're all good. Again, as long as you're really fermenting.
Right.
So that's a great point, And a lot of people, of course, because I wrote that book on estrogen, a lot of people are like, well, you definitely can't have soy sauce, right? And then I got to go into that whole nuance there. Because that's an important thing, right? Because I like soy sauce too. And
I was kind of bummed out. As a matter of fact, I've been staying away from soy sauce since I read your book, and now
there you
fired
go.
up.
I should have been really emphatic in my book about it. I don't even know if I knew. I mean, well, there's a study they did in Canada with over 100 plant foods, just looking at the estrogen content, the phytoestrogen, and all the plants were under 1,000 units of estrogen except soy and flax. Soy and flax were over 100,000 units of estrogen. So it was like a night and day difference, right?
Right.
But the crazy thing is, so soy was like 103,000, right, units of estrogen, but soy sauce was literally like 100.
Wow.
Again, the real stuff.
Insignificant. Yeah.
Yeah, totally insignificant. So, yeah, you can do that. Heavy metals.
Question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The keto bricks and stuff, they have a flax
They do.
seed or flour. Yeah.
They have
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm okay with a little bit here and there.
It's not just because your partner. No.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that too. I wish you'd pull the flax out of there, to be honest, but it's a pretty minor ingredient. The main ingredient in those keto bricks is called cocoa butter. But again, for you, with that carnivore gene, meaning that ABCG5 gene, or ABCG5, I mean, I'd be careful with the plants, But
okay,
I'd probably stick to animal fats when you do keto.
Yeah.
Like egg yolks, a lot of lard, I'd get some duck fat or something, get any kind of animal fat. Right now is a particularly good time because these pig farmers are basically giving away pigs, You can get like loads of pig lard, for probably nothing right now, if you can find a farmer. Things like that.
We got pigs now.
Oh, very good. Good for you. You're serious? You're raising pigs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, we raise grass-fed beef.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have cattle and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
So,
And lamb.
Oh, wow. Yeah, did you know that, you probably know this, but I learned that there's apparently a variety of pigs that can actually eat grass, like they can just graze.
No, I did not know that. So
yeah, I mean,
now we're gonna have to research it. Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but I thought, man, if there's ever a healthy pig, that sounds like a good one.
Really? Yeah. That's the concerns with pigs, that we have to give them some grain, and it's so hard to find. Right. It's to find something clean and non-GMO.
Exactly, it's a challenge. Yeah, that's
very much so.
But of course, even if you just give them healthier food, you're like a huge step above the conventional.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. And ours are out in sunshine and grass, and they anyway.
Yeah,
they have access to all that.
Well, I wish I knew the variety of pig. I think it's called Coon, like Kune, and then another Kune, which is kind of funny. But I think that's what the pig is called.
Okay.
In case that helps, and I might be totally wrong, and then I just totally didn't help. Just made it worse by confusing everybody. But I'm almost positive that there's a variety out there that can just graze.
Tessie's on it now, so she's Googling, so we'll see.
Yeah. And then the heavy metals, like I mentioned, you actually have pretty good heavy metal genes. This is one gene where the heavy metals potentially can build up in your mitochondria, unless you get plenty of manganese. And of course, I don't recommend buying a manganese supplement necessarily, because there's such a tiny amount and it's such a tiny little pill. It's almost better to just get pecans. But if you're considering that gene that I mentioned before with the plant sterols, you might actually want to get a manganese supplement. You know what I mean?
Right.
But again, it would go back to whether or not you actually have plaque in your arteries. That's the gold standard. If your arteries are clean, go for the pecans. Go for the real food.
Right.
If you start getting some plaque in your arteries, pull back hard on the plants.
So it sounds like it's definitely worth doing the calcium CT scan
because he eats a lot of plants.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah,
I'll make a meal out of sweet potato. Just microwave it and move on.
Right. Yeah, I would check in.
I thought I was doing a good thing.
Yeah, he walks through the garden and pulls green beans off the thing and eats it straight.
Yeah, that's good generally. Yeah, and again, because you have a plus minus, that might be perfectly acceptable and no issues. It might be great for you.
Right.
But I would check it.
So things like nuts and stuff, I mean, they're just as bad with the plant.
The plant sterols, yeah.
Yeah, sterols.
I think so. I mean, that's one of the reasons a lot of these. So a lot of people, when they do the carnivore, have you heard of the carnivore diet?
I've heard of it, but that's about all I know is the title.
Right. A lot of people that do it, they don't like it. They don't enjoy it. They don't feel great, especially initially when they start. But then some people immediately feel better. They resolve all kinds of health issues and they stay on it forever, right? Like 20 years. So there's people out there, they've been doing it for 20 years and and they feel amazing. They don't supplement a darn thing. All they do is eat meat, which is kind of crazy.
Right.
I think they probably should do some supplements and look at their genetics, of course, but still, most of those people that are like really high responders to carnivore, they have some of these genes like you've got there. And again, some of those people are plus, so it's even more extreme.
Right.
And then the doctors, like I say, they'll never figure that out. So they'll give you the runaround. They find plaque in your arteries. They'll tell you to eat more whole grains. All this kind of stuff that puts you in the completely wrong direction a lot of times. So it's an important thing to pay attention to.
This should be a standard of care. Every person should have their DNA pulled at the beginning of their life.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, it's always this tricky thing where, there's privacy issues, and then once you get the government involved, they want to figure out a way to like ruin it,
Right.
Try and microchip everybody.
Right.
And then like even with the 23andMe and stuff, I like to use an alias when I get it. I like to call myself Superman or something. And when I do like special forces or pro athletes and things, usually I buy the DNA kits myself, and then they pay me, and then I give it. So everything's under my name. So it looks like I've done my DNA hundreds of times, right?
Right.
Through 23andMe, so they
they confuse as hell. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you in terms of how powerful it is for preventing issues. That's the real key. You save a ton of money if you can prevent health issues. But eventually it probably will be,
I hope so.
Yeah, it used to cost $3 billion to do your DNA, like per person.
That's where you're at with epigenetics, correct?
Well, not 3
Well,
billion.
20,000.
Yeah, exactly. It's about 20 grand right now. Yep. But yeah, that'll get there too. So then fructose, last one on this category, avoid fructose, meaning your body stores fructose as fat a lot more readily than burning it for fuel. This is a plus gene, so you want to take it pretty serious. I wouldn't eat a lot of fruit. And if you do want to get fruit, find ones that are lower in fructose, like the berries, like blackberries, strawberries, raspberries. Those are all actually low in fructose.
Wow. Okay.
Things like
Same
that.
thing like on the keto diet, they say.
Yeah, certainly not on keto, right? Yeah. But like bananas actually are just loaded with fructose.
And pineapple.
Yeah, pineapple is not as bad, I think. I'll actually send you a link to my website where I actually kind of go through which fruits are higher and lower. Pineapple has about 2 grams of fructose per half a cup. But like figs, they have 17 grams per half cup,
Yeah.
So 2 versus 17. So figs are clearly a problem. I'll just send you.
Dang, man. And I love figs. I have fig trees.
Oh, do you really? Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can definitely have some once in a while.
Oranges.
That's hilarious.
What about watermelons? Where's that stand?
Lemons.
Yeah, watermelons are pretty high in fructose. They have 5 grams.
Aw.
Well, I'll send you.
I'm done.
Yeah. Well, like I say, clearly your ancestors, they just must not have eaten a lot of fruits and vegetables. They must have stuck to the meats and the animal products.
Right.
I mean, that's why you have these genetics,
Mm-hmm.
So, and speaking of which, if you switch to the gym section, do you have any questions looking back on that, by the way?
I do. I have one question.
Yeah.
If we were to do like an intense, like a spectrum metabolism panel, would that be better than the standard doctor panel?
Depending
to see his cholesterols and all that?
Well, the thing about the cytosterols is it's pretty hard to find somebody who actually measures cytosterol.
Okay.
So no matter who does it, you have to basically just look for that one blood test, cytosterol, SITO, and then sterol is STEROL. But yeah, usually if you work with a functional doctor and they do the metabolic panels and things, they are much better for sure. So yes, and a little bit of extra.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and what I was going to say in the gym section, I mean, you've got great genes here, really great. If you look down at the gout section before we jump into so out of order a little bit, but you see that SLC gene, SLC2A9?
Right.
That's actually a risk for gout, and it's a fructose transporter. Meaning, like, if you've got a lot of fructose in your diet, or especially if you're drinking soda with high fructose corn syrup,
right,
you are at a higher risk for basically transporting uric acid into your joints. The uric acid forms crystals. That hurts. It's called gout. It's like little glass shards in your joints.
Right.
So that's actually kind of interesting that you've got that risk from fructose, and then of course you got the risk for just storing fructose as fat in your liver. So another reason to avoid fructose, right?
Okay.
Even though even though you're set up well,
the kids all have that.
Yeah, and gout's one of those things. Even with the risk gene, usually you don't get it if you're just eating eating generally healthy and not overdoing it. You can still have fruits, just don't have them all the time, too much.
Right.
And if you got gout, you know what to do. The thing about the gout, if you go into the doctor and you've got gout, do you know what they tell you?
Calcium.
Avoid meats.
Exactly.
Red meats.
You got it. That's exactly.
That's ironic. Yeah.
Almost all of them will tell you that. And it's funny is most people, I mean, every once in a while you find some genes that relate to that, but most of them have this gene, which is related to fructose. That's the real target. But then if you jump back up a minute, you've got a couple of these HLA genes in relation to your joints. I mean, they're pretty high. So the first one, HLA-DRB1, that's a 4-fold increased risk for rheumatoid arthritis. And then the next one down, HLA-DQA1, that's a 5-fold increased risk for rheumatoid.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's probably where you're getting some of your back pain that you mentioned in your email and whatever. I mean, if I had to guess here, I'd probably say your parents may have had some joint issues, right? or your extended.
My mom does. Yeah, she's pretty crippled up. But my dad, he's 70, and man,
he's good to go.
Yeah, he's never complained of back issue one, and we all live on a farm together. So I mean,
yep. Oh, cool.
I just helped him this afternoon move an implement, and he was out pushing me. I was like, good God, you know.
That's good. Yeah, that's one of the ways to burn carbs, right? If you're eating a lot of carbs, if you're getting outdoors and you're pounding hard, you're actually, using those fast twitch muscles, you burn them. But another way to get rid of carbs is just not to eat them in the first place.
Right.
And the reason I mentioned carbs, of course, it's in this paragraph here, but it's because these HLA genes, they're super high risk for rheumatoid, but that's because they're triggered by high insulin. So like if your blood sugar is really high and your insulin's really high, you're at a super high risk for arthritis. If your blood sugar is good and your insulin is good, then you're really not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the keto, if you have joint issues, I would swing into keto. That's a great way to determine if you really need to go into keto, or if it's just kind of, if it's just more, well, that's one of these things. If you got joint pain, it's a lot more necessary than normal. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And then PTPN22. Did you have a question first?
I said so. Like, I mean, even though there's pretty high increases with these genes, but are you saying they're totally mitigated by keto type diets?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's hard to for sure say anything is completely mitigated, but yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, one of the reasons they're so high, because because the studies they're doing to find these risks are done in average Americans. And what are average Americans eating? Right. Super high carb diet, right? So then they get a super high risk for rheumatoid arthritis. It's really common.
Got you. Yeah.
And the easy solution is to get people off those carbs. And what do the doctors do? No, they give them a bunch of drugs, right? And suppress the symptoms or whatever.
Right.
Or just do a knee replacement, to be honest.
My mom.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed how many people
rejecting it.
Yeah, you'd be amazed how many people could get, they could avoid those knee replacements if they just did keto,
Wow.
Thousands of people, tens of thousands easily.
But like, it's funny, like the health insurance companies and stuff don't jump all over this type of stuff. Almost demand it. Just because, God, I mean, one knee replacement, they could pay for hundreds of consults.
There's two big money companies.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of back scratching and money, and then
sure. Yeah.
But also it's because you can't police people to do the right thing with their diet. It actually takes some motivation.
Yeah,
true. And these same people that are doing these knee replacements and whatnot, not everybody, obviously, right? There's different genes, there's different issues. Everybody's kind of in their own separate category here, but a lot of the people that are eating super high carb diet, super unhealthy, they're, go to Walmart or go to the fireworks on 4th of July, you see these people and you can tell they're not super motivated,
Right.
But we got to be in quarantine for a virus.
Right. Yeah. So PTPN22, so that's another arthritis risk gene. What's interesting about that particular one, it's also linked to gut issues. So if your gut is problematic, then your joints are usually inflamed. But your gut's pretty good, so I'm not worried about that one, particularly because of plus minus. I'm not worried about that one.
Okay.
So any questions on those? I mean, overall, you're great here, right?
Okay, I'm gonna throw something at you, and
oh, sure.
So you're speaking, how this is all tying to gut. So several years ago, we started working with a functional medicine doctor and understanding the importance of gut health and what have you. Mm-hmm. I really got on a regimen of eating fiber, or taking fiber and stuff like
psyllium.
that.
Mm-hmm.
The psyllium and stuff. But I'll say this: as I've aged, I've gotten less regular. Used to, I'd have a bowel movement every morning. Okay.
Right.
And let's say since I've done this keto and fasting and stuff. Well, no.
Oh.
I've actually gained my regularity back.
Oh, wow.
And I feel better in that regard than I have in a long time. And that surprised me. I got away from the fiber supplements and stuff.
Sure.
Do you think maybe, I mean,
Is it a plant?
Right. Is the fiber being plant? Is that, plant-based? Is there a problem with fiber in the, cytosterols?
I doubt it. I don't think it has plant sterols so much because most of it's non-digestible. It could.
Okay.
It definitely could. I mean, I don't know, to be honest.
It's yeah.
But,
anyway.
Well, the whole fiber thing, though, in particular with colon cancer,
Because there's two
it's
big
like,
money companies.
it's a really interesting
Pharma.
conundrum because, of course, everybody's taught, all the doctors are taught that fiber is critical, it's beneficial, this and that. But whenever they do studies, they actually find a lot of people respond to completely the opposite. And I jumped on my Instagram really quick because I've actually posted on this and I'm trying to find the study so I don't speak out of school too much. Let me just tell you this if I can pull it up. So in 2012, the World Journal of Gastroenterology, they published a paper on dietary fiber intake, and it's called Stopping and Reducing Dietary Fiber Intake Reduces Constipation and its Associated Symptoms. Reduces constipation, right? And its symptoms.
Right.
And they found, like, they tested anal bleeding, constipation, bloatedness, strain in bowel opening, and abdominal pain. So all these really extreme things that are related to basically taking a dump. And people that had high dietary fiber, there was a lot more people that had all of these things: anal bleeding, constipation, strain in bowel opening, abdominal pain, all this. And then when they reduced their fiber, they were still a little bit high, to be honest. But then when they went completely no fiber, all of those things went away.
Wow.
They had zero. You know, it went from like 4 people that had anal bleeding, 6 people that had constipation, 6 people that had bloat, 6 people that had strain in bowel opening, 3 people that had abdominal pain. When they cut the fiber completely, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 in every one of those categories. So it's really counter medical, right? Counter what you've been told with the medical system.
Dang.
And so
but it was
fiber,
more to kind of balance the
bacteria.
bad bacteria. I don't think it was
Right.
meant to stay on.
Sure.
So like if you took an antibiotic, you know, for whatever reason.
Yeah,
and
you don't want to stay on that, right?
Right. Then you take your fiber to kind of balance it back out, and then you reduce.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting that it was quite a bit different. Now, what's interesting about a lot of the fiber is your gut bacteria, when they break it down, they actually turn it into short-chain fatty acids or medium-chain triglycerides, basically the same stuff as MCT.
Wow.
And that's actually one of the benefits of apple cider vinegar, too. You're taking apple cider vinegar, so I'm sure you've heard that there's a lot of benefits, because there is.
Right.
And one of the benefits is that when the gut bacteria get in contact with acetic acid, they actually convert it into like these short-chain fatty acids, these little tiny fatty acids I was talking about.
Right.
So you can get those same kind of benefits that you would get from fiber by just doing MCT oil and things like that, you know?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to hear. I mean, I actually have the opposite personally. When I do keto, I usually get a little bit blocked up, or my bowel movements are a lot less, less frequent, but I don't consider that an issue necessarily. It's just it's just an adjustment. It's just a temporary adjustment period. But yeah, you know, sleep is the next section, the last section, and you just have a couple genes here. How is your sleep? It's probably pretty decent.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, it's yeah, I've never had an issue there. I put my head down, I go to sleep.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised. I mean, you do a lot of physical work too, which helps, and you're outside a lot, and you're down south, so you don't have any, you really don't have that winter season that keeps you indoors and stuff. I mean, the one plus here, of course, is that WWC1, which, isn't that, in some nationalities is rare. Like some nationalities is 1% of the people have it, but then in other nationalities, 50% of people have that gene, so it's kind of all over the place in terms of how frequent it is. But it gives you... oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that one, I definitely see it. If I miss my rest, cognitive performance dips hard.
Exactly.
I mean, even my speech is slur. The next,
yeah, you got it. So it doesn't mean you're gonna sleep poorly. It just means if you do get poor sleep, then you have about 25% less memory recall. So you got it. You just got to figure out how to sleep. and your sleep genes are so good that I'm not too worried about it. I wouldn't mess around with supplements and stuff if you're sleeping good. If you do have some struggles, you have a few options here, but
yeah,
it sounds, again, plus minus, I don't worry too much. So
it's just mostly on the quantity. I need
Right.
7 to 8 hours at least.
Right.
I'm gonna fill it. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you do a lot of physical stuff, right?
Yeah, most certainly.
Well, that's the rundown, Justin. Do you have any
Great.
overarching questions, kind of looking back on everything?
No, I think we've answered them.
Yeah,
So in a scale from 1 to 100,
how do you rank about it against everybody else? No, you have great genetics. You definitely. It's funny. Yesterday, I just did a pro athlete for this podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, his name is David Ardsma. He's a professional pitcher. He pitched for the Yankees and the Red Sox and like a ton of other teams. Really cool guy. And I'm not going to say that he had worse genes than you, but you've got pretty dang good genes even compared to him. So I can say that.
Damn.
And you can
Should have been a pitcher, babe.
And you can listen to the podcast and you can determine for yourself,
Yeah.
when you hear his episode, because that was a fun episode.
Yeah. Am I better than Justin? No.
Justin?
David,
I can't remember, to be honest.
No, I'm joking with you.
But it's funny. Justin actually sent me his DNA file, so I'm going to actually air that one on my podcast as well.
Okay, cool.
Just although, of course, the audio quality on my end isn't going to be as good because, he's got the microphone. I was just on Skype or whatever with him, but yeah, we're going to air that episode too. But thanks for doing this as a podcast. I really appreciate it. I have a lot of fun doing these, and I hope a lot of people get a lot of benefits from it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate
with
you.
Right?
Yeah, certainly. I appreciate you having me, and so it's my first time, so it'd be interesting to share it with friends and family.
Thanks, and thanks for sitting in, Tessie.
Yes, thank you.
All right,
we've really enjoyed this.
Oh, thanks. Well, have a good evening.
You too.
Yeah, bye.